Welcome. This is Jarrell Pays Attention. I'm Jarrell, and today I just wanted to share with you guys this book that I'm reading. It's called The Art of Fear by Davis Baylies and Ted Orland. And it's the observations on the peril and rewards of art making. And I thought I'd read a little bit for that and then maybe talk about how it made me feel. If you're interested in that, stick along. If not, well then you're missing out because this book is fire. I'm a full-time artist and sometimes art can be hard and creating what you love can be hard as well if you're not brave enough to do it. So sometimes it's just difficult. This chapter is chapter 4 and it's called The Fear About Others. Don't look back. Something might be gaining on you. That was by Satchel Paige. Thank you. Great words of wisdom there. All right. Art is often made in abandonment, emerging unbidden in moments of selfless rapport with materials and ideas we care about. In such moments, we leave no space for others. That's probably as it should be. Art, after all, rarely emerges from committees. But while others' reactions need not cause problems for the artist, they usually do. The problems arise when we confuse others' priorities with our own. We carry real and imagined critics with us constantly. A a veritable babble of voices, some remembered, some philosophized, and each eager to comment on all we do. Beyond that, even society's general notions about art making confront the artist with a paralyzing contradictions. As an artist, you are expected to make each successive piece unique and different, yet reassuringly familiar when set aside your earlier work. You're expected to make art that is intimately, perhaps even painfully personal, yet alluring and easily grasped by an audience that has likely never known you personally. When the work goes well, we keep such inner distractions at bay. But in times of uncertainty or need, we need to begin listening. We abdicate artistic discussion making or decision making to others when we fear that the work itself will not bring us the understanding, appreciation, and approval that we seek. For students in academic settings, this trouble, this trouble is nearly a certainty. You know, and you are correct, that if you steer your work along certain paths, 3 units of A can be yours outside of academia. Approval may be clothed in loftier terms, but you'll get that A. Critical recognition shows fellowships, or excuse me, critical recognition shows in fellowships, but the mechanism remains the same. With commercial art, this issue is less trouble since the approval from the client is primary and other rewards apparently secondary. But for most art, there is no client. And in making it, you lie bare the truth you perhaps never anticipated. By your very contract with what you love, you have exposed yourself to the world. How could you not take criticism of that work personally? So, in this little excerpt, he just talks about how as an artist, and I can talk about my experience like as an artist in dealing with the expectation of others. My work for the most part is not for other people. Uh, I create a lot of different things that I definitely keep in notebook just for myself, and I have commercial things that I share with others. But I definitely have felt that in the past and sometimes in my present. I feel this pressure to conform to like an idea or like a substrate of what I believe myself to be, and then create coming from that like perspective or like that grounded sense of self, or maybe not grounded because that's not the right word. It's like a false sense of continuity, if that makes any sense. But when I create, I feel like sometimes I'm a madman. Like sometimes I'm on to a subject and I'm studying it and I'm drawing it and I can't stop thinking about it, and eventually I'm like, ah, fuck it. No, I'm done. Like I drew it enough, or I understood it enough, or it just stopped being something worth grasping with my artistic mind. And one of the things that have always been a challenge for me was getting approval from others. When I share a story with you, when I was in high school, when I first learned how to do art, I took an AP art class, and I worked hard that year because they preached about how in AP art people they slack off or they wait, and because you're supposed to do, let me give you a little extra detail. So in that class, you're supposed to complete, I think it's like 24 assignments throughout the whole year, and the first 12 were like more like textbook, and then you have your opus, which is like this big project at the end. There's like I think it's like 12 more pictures or something like that, like five pictures that have, no, I'm pretty sure it was 12, that have like a running theme, like you're trying to say something. And I worked really, really hard in pen, like ballpoint pen, and drew a bunch of pictures. And I bared myself naked. And I was going through a lot at that time. Like my high school time, I was going through a lot, like with my family, with myself socially, uh, and I used art as a medium to express the complications that I was kind of raised in, and that chaos that I didn't get to create. It just happened to be. And I realized in high school that even though the art had deep meaning to me and had a message that, gosh, cat, that like most people could understand. Because I mean, people are raised in chaos. It happens. So I felt like it was relatable, but my work was being judged. All right, kitty, gotta get down. My art was being judged by an art committee. So there is a specific people, a specific perspective in which they're looking for to grant you a letter grade on this AP class. If you got a high enough score, you would get college credit. If you got a medium score, you get high school credit, like just for taking the art class, but you don't get the college credit. And then you can also fail if you don't complete your assignments and or your work looks like trash. There were traditional artists and digital artists in this class. Some people drew, some people took pictures, some people did digital art like on the tablet. At the time, I thought digital art was trash, and it kind of was at that time. Like it wasn't a big thing yet. There was a lot to it that I didn't understand, and I'm sure like that's part of the reason why I was like, this is trash. But at the time, like I remember like people would pretty much do like the simplest thing digitally, and then everyone would be like, "Oh yes, yes, that was let me just kiss your whole butthole. Mwah, so good." And then I'm over here sweating to draw a circle in pen and like do all this stuff, like learning the shape of the head and anatomy and lines and cross hatching and like all this stuff. I know there's a lot in digital art too. I've tried to learn it myself and I have some progress. It's tough. I get it. It's a tool. It's a very, very deep and nuanced tool. But at the time, I felt like the challenge that I was being presented was different than the challenge being presented to maybe the digital artist at the time. And so I had this like mindset. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be better. Like I gotta do what they can't do. And I really poured my heart out into like a collection of pieces, and it was about a man like going like being raised in this like chaotic city, and then like eventually finding like a piece of heaven, and he's like sleeping like in the clouds, like outside of Earth, under a really nice tree, and it kind of reminded me of like a space world tree. But anyway, needless to say, the whole thing was painstaking for me. Because not only was I dealing with just normal class, I was being asked to create something from my heart, and I tried my best. When the year ended, I submitted my work, and a month passes by, and I finally get my grade, and it turns out that I didn't get college credit. I got just normal credit for taking an art class. They said that my art was too dark, that it was lacking in technique, and and they said that the pieces were mostly it was just that it was really grim. I'm a high schooler who's dramatic as fuck, and that also has lived a really tough time. Um, and you asked me to do something, and you don't like the contents of it. Now, I understand if you don't think that the techniques administered were good or whatever. Honestly, those pieces, I still have them and I love them. I'll have to show you guys one day. I think they're really good. I've referenced them. I look back and I'm like, damn, how was I doing? Like, I was really on some shit. And I realized that the place I was doing that class in, I was in Boise, Idaho at the time. I realized that like they never really had any bad things happen to them that they needed to get out in art. They, this is how I'm trying to rationalize it in my mind because in my head I'm like, how the fuck did I not get college credit for this? How the fuck, you know? And they, so I looked at the winners. I was like, well, who are the people that did get college credit? And a lot of it was like just still lifes and people drawing the sides of barns and drawing things from pictures, but none of it came out of their imagination. None of it came out of their fucking heart. And mine did. And I didn't get credit for that. And it hurt. It hurt me deep. It really hurt my self-esteem when it came to be an artist. Because as as the individual I was definitely seeking approval. I was definitely looking for a place that I fit in the world, especially as a high schooler. We're always looking for that place until we find a home and then grow out of that. Especially me because I felt like school was my home because I didn't want to be at home. And that was kind of this happened during my senior year. So it's like the last little bit. And every year I took art classes, maybe two a semester. And so to like get all that, draw all the stuff, and then not get college credit to me was like a big slap in the face. And I started to re-examine myself with such a critical eye because I felt like what I was presenting, because I took their criticism and I applied it to myself, was too dark, was too gritty, too it wasn't the nice barn that everyone wanted to see. It was a sad, hard collection of art pieces that depicted a man trying to figure himself out. And it changed my life. After that, like I've always wanted to be an artist. It took me a long time to get to that journey. I did not get recognized. I didn't get recognized by my family for a long time. I at one point wanted to go to art school after high school. I was living in Florida at this point, and I was working like two like little side jobs, like one at Chick-fil-A and like one like scanning papers at like one of like at a medical facility. And I remember like I was talking to my grandparents at the time. I was like, "Hey, I really want to just go to art school." And they wanted me to go to medical school to be a nurse or an anesthesiologist. They wanted anesthesiology, and a bunch of other stuff. Like they wanted a bunch of. I'm not a service person like that. I don't want to touch your gross. I barely want to touch. Barely want to wipe my own nose. Like I don't wipe your ass. I don't want to deal with your blood. I don't want to take care of you if you're sick. That's none of my fucking business. That's how I felt at the time. Um, Now. I've been grown a little softer, but I still don't want to fucking do that shit. Like I would not have been happy in that life because it wasn't my life. Um, but they had an intervention for me one day. Like I gotten home from work and like everybody was in the kitchen and I was like, what's going on, guys?" And they were like, "Well, we have this here," and it had like all my notebooks and like my art pieces and the pictures that I told you from the art class. It was all displayed out, and they're like, "Jarrell, you want to go to art school, but you really need to focus on going into the medical industry." And I was like, "But I don't want to do that. Like, I want to do art, you know?" And they're like, "Well, you can't do that. This art won't sell. It's too dark. It's too gritty. It's too whatever." And they went in, like each of them had their turn, telling me that I couldn't make it as an artist. And that really hurt because school was my home and they didn't want my art. I didn't get college credit for that. And then I went to another place that should have been my home amongst my family and they didn't want my art. They didn't have faith in what I could create. And that hurt. And I couldn't stay there any longer, by the way. I had to leave. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. If you guys think so lowly of my creations, then fuck it. I'm out of here. Fuck you. I don't give a shit. Take it and leave. Like I was like, fuck it. Like if you don't like it, you know, I'm not gonna be what I'm not gonna be. And obviously they didn't like that either. They're not used to a confrontational person like I am, where if I know I'm right and it's about me, then fuck off. Cause it's me. Like it's me. I'm the driver of this bad boy. All right. And you can either ride with me or you can go somewhere else. Now at that time I had no independence. So I really did have to listen to them. That I was in full teenage angst. And I will admit that. By all means, like I'm sure I've said things that were wrong. I'm sure I expressed myself ineffectively, but I did feel a general lack of support for my artistic endeavors for a long time. I wound up leaving Florida that day, like not that day, but like real close after that, because I was very fed up, and they said that I couldn't stay. I had to throw away a lot of my things just to leave, and I wound up going to New York, and that's when I joined the military, and you know, the military likes my fucking art. Just saying. And they liked it when I was in the service. I painted murals. I drew like squadron, what you call it, mascots. I drew a few different mascots. And the VA is helping me right now with with showing off some of that art. So I guess what I'm trying to share with you guys is that sometimes what you're creating can be perceived as controversial. Looking back, understand why my family didn't support my art because that darkness that they were looking at was them. And of course, no one likes looking at a mirror of themselves, especially painted by somebody that had lived in their world. And I get that. The school, I mean, I think they just liked nicer things in general. So I'm not mad at them, but they should have gave me credit. Um, but what I'm trying to get at here is that I never stopped drawing. And the more people told me to stop, the more I did it. I'm a very stubborn individual sometimes. I triple down and I felt like art was probably the only way to save my life. By just pen to paper, drawing lines in many different ways, and it has saved my life many times over. Many times I've hit a breaking point where I feel like I can't go any further, or I feel like my world has become unmanageable and is falling apart. And every time I am falling apart, and I cry my head into my notebook. Out comes my very soul onto that piece of paper. And sometimes you have to be fearless. Sometimes you have to create the thing that they don't want to see. Sometimes you have to create the mirror. And that's the job of artists. We have a unique perspective. We're creators. It's easy to destroy. It's easy to knock down a sandcastle, but it's not easy to build one. It's not easy to draw. It's not easy to put the picture together, to take what's in your heart, to take your experience and put it onto paper. That's real power. And I've had it my whole life. And everyone has been trying to tell me that it doesn't exist. So I'm telling you, as a fellow artist, to whoever's listening, the power of art, the power to create anything is power. And only you can harness it. It's your superpower. You have to spend the time honing it and figuring out how it works for you. And then taking that whole thing and making the world of it. Because not everyone's gifted enough to create something. Some people really only know how to destroy, really only know how to take. So the creators out there, those who have the fear and the art, I just want to share that like what you're doing is important, especially with the advent of technology and AI and fake shit everywhere. Your traditional scribbles on a piece of paper are going to be worth gold because no one will spend the time to look at themselves and learn how to draw what's in their heart. It's not easy, but we do it, right, guys? We're artists. It's the most important thing we can do is to tell the world what we see, and we tell them the way that we see it, and we have to do it unapologetically. All right, guys. It's been Jarrell Pays Attention. Peace.